Hello everybody, and welcome back to part 2 of the Björk Medulla album review. This is the show where we break down albums like Björk's Medulla track by track, giving thoughts and opinions on every single song. This is the Rockin' Beards podcast. It's a little bonus episode for the Björk album review series where I'm going through each and every one of her reviews on Who Am I? Well, my name is Holden Stephan Roy, and I will be the guy talking about Björk's albums as I have been doing on all the other Björk album reviews so far on this channel. Enough keyword stuffing. We can just get into the album review real quick. I went through the first 6 tracks plus the little intro bit in the first part. There are still, I believe, 8 more songs for us to discuss in part 2 of this review. And without further ado, let's talk about Submarine. It's such a weird track. Like, there's like the voice thing that kind of sounds like an underwater gurgle going on. She's joined by Robert Wyatt on this one, and apparently there's also Neil Dorfsman, and there's that, and then there's multiple humming kind of sounds coming through. They kind of both sing and then cut each other off and do different parts as they flow throughout this track, and it creates like it doesn't have a lot of lyrics, right? But it has this crazy evolution where I don't know that I've heard a lot of songs like this. The first time I heard this, I can tell you, I was like, what the fuck is this? This is some weird ass shit. It's like throat music or something. And then you really start to listen to it and you break down the different parts, and it almost creates this beautiful harmony of the deep basses with Björk's version as she comes in with like this higher humming sounds that kind of complement it. And so on the one hand, it's like you have this unsettling undercurrent of like, I guess, horror with this topper layer of kind of nice, beautiful, relaxing sounds, and it almost feels like there's like this underlying anxiety to it all. I don't know what the song's really 100% about. However, I do know that just listening to it the first time, you might not really be able to appreciate what's actually happening on this song from like all the sounds flowing in and out as they are. So if you're like me and this type of vocal track would just sound like a clusterfuck of weird the first few times you heard it, like really take the time to focus on each and individual sound as it flows throughout the track, and I bet you'll be able to come to start to see how like interestingly this song is, but really like focus on how the different voices flow like in and out of each other to create like this almost anxious moving this song forward. And if you look at the words after, when will it be time to document? Do it now. The submarine behavior, do it now. When time to return, do it now. Do it now. And there is this sense of urgency being conveyed. It's not really conveyed by the speed. It's almost like the speed of how they sing it is slow and calm, almost like it reflects the pace that people actually pursue the urgency in their life, but the way it's being delivered builds this sense of urgency when you consider the words. Then the chorus is, shake us out of a heavy deep sleep, shake us now, do it now, do it now. And then it sounds to me like maybe it's the environmental situation, maybe it's the political tension of the terrorist era of George W. Bush, maybe it's all of these different things put together. Maybe as a parent, she's now realizing that time is more precious than it was, and that you don't have the same luxury to wait forever to go out there and accomplish anything that is important to you, whether it's, in my case, making music and podcasts, whether it may be in your case having kids or building that business or reading that book, or even if it's something mundane, like, you know what was one for me for a long time? Replacing my wallet. And when I finally replaced my wallet, I felt like such a winner. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't even like the craziest wallet swap, but to check off on my list of stuff, new wallet, and I got it and I did it, it was such a nice feeling. Anyway, I don't have a lot more to comment on this track. I thought it was pretty good, pretty interesting, but not my cup of tea. Back in that list of this is like an interesting art piece that I respect and admire how well made it is, while not necessarily feeling the highest sense of enjoyment. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, as I talk about it, I'm excited because it's so fucking weird and cool. When I was listening to it, I was like, oh snap, Björk is a weirdo. 4.15, I'm inspired by this more than I think I enjoy it. But don't get me wrong, I am inspired by how out there this is, because it's like, again, every time I listen to one of her albums, I'm like, you can do that with music? Like, it's such a crazy experience. Anyway, next up has a music video that I found quite boring with like floaty elements and a fish and stuff. It's called Desired Constellation. I feel like there's like a synth or something used here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just all like vocal samples that are morphed up and flipped around. It feels different though than like the straight a cappella. When I check the credits, I'm seeing nothing other than vocals and I guess samples. Oh right, no, sorry. It is based off of a sample of her on Hidden Place that got like flipped around and remorphed, and then there was a whole story she told of Olivier Allery that had done some work on her, and then at the end of the day, haha, it's actually your voice. But I love the way that this beat kind of has this staticky tension to it below the whole track, and as you're going through it, it almost builds on the tension and anxiety that came from Submarine, as though there's something not okay, there's something disconcerting going on in the world, in the life. And maybe it's just, again, because as a parent you might start to consider some of the bigger picture stuff. I know for me, as I hit my 30s, I started caring a lot more about global politics and what's going on in the world and all the different things that actually impact me. Like, I was never more politically aware for this current Canadian election that just passed. And then you get this verse here where it's tricky. When you feel someone has done something on your behalf, oof, that's an interesting point too, right? And so I can imagine on a personal level, when friends think for you or speak for you or anything like that, mixed with the more surreal level or the more real level of like politics, when you have entities that represent you as an Icelandic person or a Canadian person in my case, or an American citizen for the US folk or whatnot. So you have this whole situation where it's difficult when you feel that way. It's slippery when your sense of justice murmurs underneath and is asking you, how am I going to make it right? And then I feel like you get this little flip here. So when somebody and then I kind of consider myself at work when I've been maybe asked to do things that I find less than fully morally ethical. And then you're put in a compromising position, and basically your sense of justice, how you see the world, is there, and you're frustrated with how things are, or especially with politics, when you look up at the world and you see a lot of the things, especially like, man, like I look at a Brexit situation as a Canadian and I'm like, that's some whack crap. Like how can I make it right? You know, I'm left with these thoughts, or I'm in Quebec, English-French tensions are kind of whack. How can I make it right? How can I is my question, right? But she's saying, how am I? Like, there's some problems. So maybe it's at a personal level. Somebody betrays your trust, and you're stuck with this situation where they spoke on your behalf, they acted out of place, and now you're left with a situation like, how am I going to make it right? Like a friend of mine recently had a friend staying at his place for a couple of weeks, and he got out of hand, got out of line, got disrespectful, had to kick him up. And you might ask, why did he have to? Because that in that moment, that was the only way to make it right. So, and then in the bigger picture, how do you make this relationship right? How do you make this friendship right over time? I like it. I like the way that she gets my brain going like this and ruminating about all these real life situations as you flow through it. Or anyway, with a palm full of stars, I throw them like dice on the table. I shake them like dice and throw them on the table repeatedly until the desired constellation appears. So here it almost feels like in her efforts to make things right in life, she keeps trying things. She has a palm full of stars, full of, I guess, maybe abilities, maybe potential. Because when I picture a star, potential is something that pops into my head. Or, I don't know, maybe I'm running with it. So then she rolls them like dice. And then the constellations are the results and how things are actually going to play out in time. And so you can see what I think you're supposed to take from this is that, yes, everything you do is going to be random. You have like no guarantees in life that anything you're going to do is actually going to work or be successful or be what you hope it's going to be. And it's going to be kind of random as you throw your dice. But if you keep doing it, inevitably the desired constellation will appear. And then it's got this kind of questioning tone, like she hasn't figured it out yet, but she keeps faith in the fact that if she keeps trying things, she will get to the point where she can basically have what she wants out of life, or find the solutions, or whatever. And I know she's got some serious activist life going on, and she's done some seriously interesting stuff over the years. Nothing I can quote right now because none of it's fresh on my mind. But I've looked into it and I really respect her. And I really feel like she's somebody I've come to admire in how she lives her life and whatnot. I know she's part of the crew of people that make me care about the environment more. Since I've been reviewing your music, I can't help but care more about things like fishies. Anyway, 4.5 on 5. This is such a beautifully interesting song with a great chorus and a great message behind it, at least from my perspective. On that note, speaking of fishies, the next song is called Oceania. This track comes with like absolutely amazing beatboxing from Shlomo. I don't really know that I've heard this song before, but apparently this is the track for the 2004 Olympics. I mean, I'll be honest with y'all, I was like 16 or so in high school, and things like Green Day were more important to me than stuff like Björk in the Olympics. Apparently it was nominated for the Grammys. Like, I don't remember Björk being this big in my high school life. That's all I'm trying to say. Evidently she was, but maybe it was just being in Canada. We were closed off from the world prior to the YouTube era. Either way, they asked Björk to kind of create an ebony and ivory or We Are the World kind of inclusive song. So Björk said maybe there's a better way to approach this because you know what, one thing all countries have in common, we're all surrounded by oceans. And then she got this song where it's like she takes on the perspective of the ocean is what I think is happening here. Anyway, one breath away from Mother Oceania, your nimble feet makes prints in my sands. So you can almost picture like a little creature running through, and Oceania is like, yeah, nature, loviness. And I don't mean to sound patronizing. It's sometimes a little funny to me how far people can go into this animal life thing, but I'm like right there if we're talking about aliens and spaceships and like space wars, so it's not that different. It's just really cute. Like if somebody said it to me, I'd smile and call them cute. If you had done good yourselves since you have done good yourselves since you left my wet embrace and crawled ashore. And I think that's an evolution bar. I think she's being like, so all life starts in the ocean from an evolutionary perspective, and then inevitably some ancestor of ours, you know, crawled onto land and developed legs and shit. And so in a sense, every boy is a snake is a lily and every pearl is a lynx is a girl, because we all kind of, from a long ass term evolutionary perspective, stem from the ocean together. So instead of connecting your typical thing like we're all the same people, she's kind of correlating it back to we're all stemming from the same genetic imprint of nature from the oceans. We all kind of come from that. So that is something all of humanity has in common. Sweet like harmony made into flesh, you dance by my side, children sublime. So in a sense, we are all the children of the ocean goddess lady that Björk is personifying in this song. And if you are into the evolutionary side of things, that is kind of what's going on. And I'm like, that's super fascinating. Like, it is such a different take. Meanwhile, the music has this like, I don't know how to do the sound. Like, it's this underwater, what I would call mermaid fucking noises going on over this beatboxes, and it just feels like almost again Disney-esque in the sense, maybe it's just because of the Little Mermaid movie, but I just picture being underwater and floating through the sea and all sorts of other creatures coming around and bubbles singing at me and whatnot, and I'm just like, this is not the first time I'm picturing being in the ocean. Another album I'm reviewing this very week will talk about going into the ocean. However, it's not quite so happy and inclusive as this one. We'll discuss it when I get to that review. You can guess what album it is, but it'll probably be out by the time you watch this. Anyway, then you get the second verse where it's like, you show me continents, I see islands, you count the centuries, I blink my eyes. I'm like, I guess. Oh, I get what that's saying. It's like, oh, from your perspective, this continent is so very big, but I'm the ocean. That's just an island to me. And you count your centuries and you keep track of time, but I blink my eyes and a centuries goes by. It's honestly very reminiscent of the idea of when God in the Bible goes, a day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day in the eyes of the Lord, or whatever. Hawks and sparrows race in my waters. Stingrays are floating across the sky. So yeah, stingrays are directly referenced on this other album, and I thought it was crazy that there'd be 2 albums in the same week that mentioned stingrays. I don't know if they're stingrays, but I know I went to the Toronto Zoo or aquarium, and they have ray things, and they're like little freaking puppies, and all the girls that were around me got to pet them, and when I stuck my hand in the water, they didn't want to let me pet them, but they were still really cute, and I wanted to pet the ray, and I like rays now. I'm a big fan. They're cute as fuck, and if I could have a pet ray, I would have a pet ray, but I don't have any kind of appropriate aquarium set up for rays in my apartment. Anyway, across the sky, little ones, my sons and daughters, your sweat is salty. I am why. I guess the ocean's salty, so our sweat is salty because of the ocean. Get it? Anyway, I thought this was a fun little song. It's a very different take on, I guess, the kind of inclusion stuff. I don't remember watching the music video. I know I watched it. I don't really remember it at all. I saw quickly in the little thumbnail, Björk looks like a fish lady. But it didn't leave an impact on me, is I guess what I can say. I think this is a cool song, though. It's one of those ones where I'm like, I don't know if it's like something I would go to my way to listen to as a person, but like, unlike the ones where I was, let's say, bored and maybe almost a little bit not into it, I was really curious and into this track. So it's like out of my scope of like what I would throw on, but it's so weird in a fun and engaging way that I can see how this worked and how a lot of people could find themselves liking it, because it combines so many different elements, like Disney meets hip-hop meets Björk. Anyway, 4.35 on 5 is what I gave this track. I'm quite happy I've heard this one. And let's move on to the next song on the album, Sonnets / Unrealities P9. P9 is 1X, and that's a street in Montreal. Not relevant to anybody watching this. XI is 11. This is back on that choiry church music tip. It's nice sounding. I find it better than the other one. It kind of is short. It's 2 minutes long. And she is basically singing the poem "It May Not Always Be So," and I Say by E.E. Cummings. So I think it's really interesting that like she takes this poetry, these classics like that, and almost repurposes it, and then she just kind of sings out the words like it's completely relevant to her, probably because it is, but does it over this like Icelandic choir in a very, very like almost cliche churchy a cappella feel. I never really heard this poem before, and I came to realize for all of my poetic lyrical analyses that I do, I never read poetry. Like, I just never do, and I don't have a history of it either. So I guess that's something I should get on my poetry quest, but I'm not that interested when there's all this great, beautiful music to go through. So still, Björk is forcing my hands to take a look at some E.E. Cummings. It may not always be so, and I say that if your lips, which I have loved, should touch another, and your dear strong fingers clutch her heart, as mine in time not far away, if on another's face your sweet hair lay, in such a silence as I know. And that's an interesting idea that's being expressed there. It's like you have your partner, your person that you're with, that you love, and you enjoy the moment, but it may not always be like that. And if it turns out that we're all loving other people, that's what I'm getting from this first part. In such a silence as I know, or such great writhing words as uttering over much, stand helplessly before the spirit at bay. If this should be, I say, if this should be, you have my heart, send me a little word that I may go unto her, take her hand, saying, accept all happiness from me, then I shall turn my face and hear one bird sing terribly afar in the lost lands. So in a sense, it's like, if it's gonna be that you love that chick more than me, I'm gonna go up and give her all the blessings in the world because your happiness is more important to me, and then I'm gonna go and be miserable in the forest or something, because I guess it's the ultimate form of love, is the altruistic selflessness of letting your love embrace the love that's meant for them, and then you have to kind of deal with the consequences of it after. I mean, I'm certain there's a whole bunch of poetry analyses of this particular poem that is out there. I reviewed none of it before. This is just what I came up with when I listened to it. This is not my favorite, but I think it's nice, and I think it's a cool way to repurpose the poem. It's just like a twisted little sad thing, and I guess to fit it into this album, I don't know, I feel like there was kind of a little sort of story arc going on with the baby stuff at the beginning, and then now I've just flowed into kind of some randomness. Like, we got frustrated, maybe there's some frustrations in life going on, and then it gets to this point where, well, it builds into almost maybe her lover or whatever is not in the happiest situation. Maybe there's some conflict in her relationship this week as this song was created. I don't really know. Sometimes the story arc thing is more in my head than actually existing when I do look for it, and so I'm not going to go that deep here. I think this is just an okay song, and I give it a 4.25 on 5. So without further ado, let's talk about Ancestors. There's a few things going on this track. So this one has a piano, so it's, I guess, one of the rare moments of a clear instrument being used. The way she describes it, it was originally called Piano 2, and it was meant to be like a piano experiment. So as she's playing these sparse notes, kind of spread out, she has all sorts of different sounds coming in. A lot of them are nice and beautiful and kind of like harmonious singing stuff. And then on the other end, she's got this kind of growly sound going on. And what I like about this song is it kind of sounds like a drug trip. It sounds like all sorts of different emotions put together. So on the one hand, it's like life has this nice side to it that's really peaceful and super serene. But again, at the back end of it, and playing the percussion role on this track, is this growly, this like monster that's coming in, and at certain points the more nice parts of this song are taking in the lead, and it's mostly beautiful. But then as you go on, you can't get away from, I guess, the monsters or the scowly darkness that comes along with it. And it is really just really freaking weird and interesting to me. Like, I don't know that there's a lot of clear narrative going on in this song. It just, like, if you were to describe art project as song, this is one of the candidates I would throw up to you, where it feels like a song. When you're done to 4 minutes of it and stuff, you're not going like, this isn't a song, but you're also going, what in the fuck was this? At least the first time for me, I was like, this is fucking whack. But as I listened to it more and more, I started to see like this poetic element of how the highs or the singy or beautifuler part represents those ups in life, something like the joys that are coming with it. And I guess a secondary theme on this album is how there's this joy and this unity, but there's also this darkness. There's the pain on one side and the love on the other side, you know? So my joy on the left and the pain on my right is what I was trying to say. And in this song, I think it's really exemplified in the sense that you have on the one hand just that beautiful sounding stuff, and then whatever. I don't know if there's anything else that I can really comment on this track. It is a weird hybrid experience where it feels tribal. So the name Ancestors, I guess, makes me think back to before language, before anything. Like, this music, according to one of the books I just read, is one of the earliest ways people would have used to, quote-unquote, get high, and predates all sorts of things like fire. So in a sense, if you were to imagine what your ancestors' music would have sounded like, it probably would have been a harmonization of a lot of people creating mouth noises. Another thing that it made me think of, no, I'll touch on that other thing a bit later on. So yeah, I'm going to give this one a 4.25. Again, I don't really know if this is a go-to in my life for like something I want to listen to on a regular, but from like when you want some weird inspirational new shit that doesn't sound like a lot of other things, but is also like really killing it, I would highly recommend Ancestors as like this next level thing. Joining her also is Tanya Tagak. I don't know what part she did, but either way, great track in terms of what it is. Something so fascinating. Anyway, let's move on then to the next song on this album, Mouth's Cradle. This is another weird song with like gasping sounds at the beginning, and there's some synth that gets used in this track. So this one also kind of has a bit of a instrument use, but it's not like the predominant sound. There's still a lot of vocal work that goes into it, and it's pretty crazy, right? If we stop and just take a second to consider that this is the 12th track into this project, and she has essentially used all sorts of different ways to create an a cappella experience. A cappella being without instrument, just vocal sounds. And yes, we said pianos and synth here, but that means 10 tracks in a row with literally like nothing but beatboxers and human trumpets and stuff. And then we get to this point. Fine, I can accept it. It doesn't really break away from the concept of the album. And this has like this crazy like flow as it builds up, and it's like really fascinating. It's a really full and rich track with a great little beat going on with it. And I don't know, man. The beatboxing is again done by Razel, which has come to be one of the key parts of this album for me. Razel's beatboxing has almost instantly brought this song to another level anytime he's touched it, and there's thankfully a few times he's been on this album. From a subject matter, this is one of those ones where, like, I guess it's good for me to know about, but I'm never gonna experience this shit. So it's about breastfeeding. That's what the internet has told me, and I kind of get where they're coming from. There is yet another one that follows me everywhere I go and supports me. All right, that sounds like a baby, because it follows you around, your child, and it supports you emotionally, etc., gives you a purpose, whatnot. And this tooth is warmth-like, and these teeth are a ladder up to his mouth. These teeth are a ladder that I walk, and you can walk too much if you want up to that mouth. I guess that's a convoluted way of pointing out that you like gotta get bit as it's happening, or maybe she's just experiencing that. Like, I don't know. To me, it sounds like the baby's coming on up and breastfeeding, and she's just kind of singing about it. And I know this is kind of awkward saying, I just don't know what to say to this. He always has a hope for me, always sees me when nothing else, and everyone have left. The ghost is brighter than anyone and fulfills me with hope. Now that part I think is super interesting. So when all is said and done and the moment's gone and the day is over, and maybe you're sitting around, and in a normal day like me, I go home and then the night's over and I have to go to bed, and you know, maybe you have a girlfriend or a partner and you're there, but otherwise you basically go home and it's over and you're on your own again. Whereas Björk's pointing out, at all points, there's going to be this kid that needs you and gives you like almost a reason, and kind of after everyone's gone gives you that hope, gives you that purpose, makes you feel wanted, because I think everybody always wants to feel wanted. And so I guess breastfeeding gives you a feeling of usefulness in your life in moments where otherwise you would not have it. And you can totally correlate that to other things, but like, I mean, and you can use these teeth as a ladder up to the most cradle, and you can follow these notes I'm singing up to the most cradle, the simplicity of the ghost-like beast, the purity of what it wants, where it goes. And it's pretty like natural and shit, you know, this base level. Baby wants to suck on breast and get nourishment and whatnot. Always love, always loves you, infrared love. So I guess it's just kind of this nice, loving ode of bonding with her child. For me, it didn't do like a whole lot on that front, but like it sounded really, really beautiful. Like you can feel how moved she feels by this whole experience, and I kind of, on some level, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit jealous that this is not like something I can really do. But on the other hand, I suppose there's other things I can do that I get as a benefit of not doing that. I don't really know where I'm going with this. This sounds a 4.5. I know I may not have sounded like it from the way I broke down the lyrics, but it's also like I feel like I'm in very, very not comfortable territory of describing things when I can't ever live through it. But sonically, it was a crazy, overwhelming, like, beautiful sound sensation of like, you just feel her, you feel almost the transformative nature of what's going on in her world and her emotional experiences, I guess. Anyway, that's enough about this one. Let's talk about another one whose name I'm going to butcher. Midvikudas. This is like another one of those ones that's like a whole bunch of, where did I hit? A whole bunch of different vocal sounds put together. She has like doo-doo-doos and other percussion-y sounds laced together, and she takes us through about 1 minute and 25 seconds of this intense but hopeful experience. I don't have a lot more to like comment on this one. I know it might feel like it's a little bit lazy, but from a descriptive point of view, I feel like we get the second half of the album has like a tensity. This one comes on with that tenseness that we saw in a few of the other ones, but also has like this hopeful happiness to it. I like the way she can beatbox it and kind of make it all flow in terms of what she's doing with the track, but I don't really have a whole lot more to say except that the title translates to Wednesday, and that's what this song is called, and I don't really know. It's an alright track. I gave it a 4.35. As far as the a cappella experiences and all of that goes, I think it is up there. I think it's truly cool, but it's just a similar emotion that I've been conveying. I don't feel anything new at this point with it, but I enjoyed it. So let's move on to the last song of the album proper, Triumph of a Heart. My girlfriend likes to tell me about how she birthed her cats out of her vagina, and it was immaculate conception. She says it in a pun way where it says cat in the middle. And then I saw this music video where Björk's dating Catman, and he's a man, and he plays like a wife beater at the beginning, and she goes out and she parties in this music video, and she has a whole bunch of time with her friends. And then there's this little like beatbox session in the middle, and that was what I wanted to touch on a bit earlier. I said it wait till later, but that reminded me of this experience I had in Israel where we were all in the desert, and I was on the Birthright group, and there was like 40 of us, and we went around this circle, and everybody got us to like make noises, and essentially one by one we all contributed a sound to create our own little desert song. And it reminded me a lot of how each person individually added their noise to create a fuller, more beautiful song-like experience, even if it was just a random scream from like the dude who grabbed his balls, or the more constant noises of maybe some of the more percussion and based sounds that were being added. But just watching like 15 people culminate individual sounds into a harmonic experience of beauty is just something I've always been really impressed with, and I like how the music video did. And then Björk gets home and kisses the fucking cat, and I'm like, man, this is just weird shit. Because that's how I picture it going down when my girlfriend talks about birthing cats out of herself naturally. Still, that's what it is. That was the weirdest music video, but I can see how a lot of cat ladies would really appreciate the idea of this cat just waiting for them. And I guess that's how a lot of women see their cats. Not maybe the kissing part, but you know what? I wouldn't be that surprised, I guess is what I'm trying to say. This has Razel on it again, if I'm not mistaken. It also has Dokaka, and they both kind of play their various parts on the beatboxing, making this extremely full and interesting rhythm going on. You've got like this crazy beat. It's one of my favorite songs on the entire album. It just is so upbeat. You can't help but start moving when it kicks in, and it's got vocals like boom, 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 kind of mixed into it. It's got this cool set. It's like this is like my favorite, not my favorite song, but it's like right up there as one of my favorite songs on this project. It's definitely my favorite song on the second half of the album. And then you got like the verse where it's like the nerves are sending shimmering signals all through my fingers. The veins support blood that gushes impulsively support towards. So it's interesting. It's almost like focusing on the senses and the biology of your body. And, you know, there's nerves and they send signals all throughout your things. You've got veins that push blood through here. So in a sense, it boils down to is the triumph of the heart that gives all that gives all. So your heart pumping the blood through your body, but also from a more emotional, corny thing, it's your child or your offspring or whatever. It's the triumph of your heart, the result of your love, creating that little baby. So it kind of manifests both from the biological point of view to maybe a more top level metaphorical point of view of the triumph of the heart. Then you got the second verse where it's like the stubborn trunks of these legs of mine serve as pathways for my favorite fuel, heading upwards towards my kidneys that celebrate. I don't really know what the fuck she's talking about. Sounds like she's dancing, and the dancing and the music and the moving comes off in a way that gives her an intoxicating feeling, something similar to like alcohol, or maybe she is talking about alcohol. And now she can drink because the kid's out, and so she's describing getting drunk and dancing, maybe. I don't know. But she seemed to be really happy that she mentioned kidneys on this song. She had a whole little blurb about just the joy of mentioning kidneys and how exciting it was for her because of kidney energy. Then there's a little bridge. Smooth, soft, red, velvety lungs are pushing a network of oxygen joyfully through a nose, through a mouth, all enjoys. And I really like how, again, it focuses on these base things, like because of the heart moving the blood around, the oxygen distribution and shit, it really just all plays out like that, focusing on things that ultimately create the music in her life. And that's kind of what I took from that. I thought it was beautiful. It was like this triumphant feel. It was a really great way to end the album. In the beat, I'm like 90% certain there's a meow, and then there's a cat in the video, but I'm pretty sure there's just like a meow, meow, like the same meow repeating. I'm like, just fucking crazy. This is such a weird song. I gave this a 4.75 on 5. And we're going to do something a little bit special for the bonus track that we will talk about real quick. But here's the thing, I forgot to review it. So I'm going to go listen to Komiõ one time and give you like a fresh on the jump reaction to this. Alright, so this is like another little vocal instrumental thingy. For some reason it's not on the Spotify album. I don't know why it's not there, but it reminds me a lot of Midvikudas and the other one that was just kind of a bunch of random sounds for a couple minutes. I like the way it kind of has in the background when she does it. Like there's like the main layer of vocals that come in, and then there's like kind of whatever else that fills it out. Then there's like the triumphant kind of like singy sound that comes in, that but it's subdued, like it's in the background but just complements it, and then it kind of like fades everything down to this singular vocal track that kind of flows through at the end and kind of ends it on this nice little thing. But again, it's just like this little instrumental that doesn't give me a whole lot to work with. And you know what? I think it's nice. I think it works as a bonus track. I think at this point I'm all random sound instrumental acapella out at the moment. But as far as it goes, it's as good as any of the other ones, so I'll give it a 4.25. And that will bring us to the end of this album review. So I gave Björk's Medulla a 4.445 on 5. As far as Björk album goes, I think this is my least favorite one I have enjoyed from a sonic perspective so far. However, that comes with a very big caveat. A, I'm not a parent yet, and I think a couple of these songs would mean something more to me if I was. And B, I'm not into a lot of the a cappella choices she made, not because they're bad choices, not because this album isn't as well made as other albums that she's done, because I think if we talk about it from the objective perspective of compositional technicalities, the beauty of her voice, her ability to put all these sounds together in inventive ways to create new experience that don't sound like other things I've heard, on every front she is checking the box like a freaking champion. The other part of, I guess, listening to an album is, do I like it? How much do I actually enjoy about it? There's about 4 or 5 songs on this album I think are truly standout and divine and are as enjoyable for me to listen to as anything on any of the other projects. The rest of the album comes off very experimental to me in my North American point of view, but it is definitely something that feels like she's not trying to make a North American pop album. It feels like she's trying to make something interesting, something that is unlike things she has done before, which also means me as the listener, it's unlike things I'm used to listening to. So taking all that into consideration, I very much respect and admire it. In fact, I'm grateful to have listened to this album just for the sake of hearing something so obscure and so weird based on my normal taste. It takes me out of my comfort zone and helps me appreciate music with a broader sense. So I'm saying it's my least favorite Björk album from the perspective of the music I want to listen to for fun. But from the part where I respect her as an artist, this just makes me respect her even more and makes me even more excited to see what comes as I continue on my Björk album review quest. And I'm not done. Don't expect another one before Christmas time. I'm probably not getting that done until December, but who knows? Maybe it just works out that in the next few weeks I'm ready to go with another review. We'll see how it ends up happening, but I'm giving myself a couple months in terms of promising y'all. So thank y'all for being here with me. I appreciate you checking out this project with me. I appreciate you watching these reviews and giving me your thoughts and opinions. There's like 3 or 4 of you who seem to every time hit up the Björk reviews. Y'all are my MVPs up on this one. So let me know in the comment sections what you thought of this, what you thought of this album, what it was like when you first heard it. If you're like me, is this not your favorite, or are you the opposite and this is the shit to you? So let me know in the comments. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. Hit that like button if you do like this video. And special thanks to the patrons: Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black Hurricane, Lindell Williams, and Coney Sparks. They support what we do, helped us get a new camera, helped us get on Spotify, Apple, all the other podcasting stuff. And they're going to help us get a website up in order too, because they're freaking awesome like that. And thankfully, money does rule a lot of things. So getting some helps is all I'm saying. I'm not trying to sound too biggy, but it's just there's a lot of expensive shit in my near future. But if you do want to support us like that, you totally get to request album reviews from us like they do. And you can help us just achieve something greater and bigger than what it is right now. Because this channel is more than just myself, even though nobody else wanted to go through all the Björk albums with me. That's okay. I released an album myself. Musically, I make hip-hop, and I dropped that project on October 16th, and you can check it out on this channel or on Spotify or on anything else. Links in the description, and I look forward to hearing back from you and all that good stuff. So on that note, live long and prosper.